Hello, everybody, and welcome to a very, very special Fight in Focus. I'm Josh Shernoff, and today I am joined by the COO and co-founder of FITE and my boss, Mr. Mike Weber. Mike, thank you for joining me on this show.
Glad to be here, Josh. I love those red and white ties.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I was debating. I had like 16 FITE ties, and I wasn't sure which one. This is the one that won out. Hey, we have you here to talk about this upcoming FITE Fest event, March 31st to April 2nd, right here on FITE. It's called FITE Fest. There are so many different events happening. We're going to talk about everything, but I thought who better to talk to about this event than you, than one of the co-founders of FITE. So Mike, before we even get into the event, let's talk a little bit about FITE and what everybody thinks of as Wrestlemania weekend. This is not the first time FITE has had a presence in this weekend. Going back a number of years, I want to say it was way as far back as, was it Orlando? You tell me, where was it where you first had this?
So we launched in February of 2016. The whole FITE went up. We started at 0 that day, and we've grown over the years and quite excited about it. We now are 6 years old. But we took the Wrestlemania 32 in Dallas, and we're obviously coming back to Dallas this year. So we're coming back already in a full circle to Dallas. We were there. We aired just a couple shows. I think it was 1 or 2 shows, and we used it actually as a way to tell people about FITE. You know, we launched in February. April was Wrestlemania. Nobody knew what FITE was yet then. I stood on a street corner literally passing out FITE coolies to get people excited. And postcards with Jim Ross featured, who was our spokesperson at the time. And that's how we got started working there. Obviously, I have a background in wrestling. Wrestlemania has been recognized for pretty much the whole 38 years now as the place where wrestling fans from all around the world come to celebrate wrestling. It's probably the busiest, biggest week of the year of wrestling. So at 32, we were in Dallas. 33, Orlando, right outside our friends at WrestleCon. We did about 2 hours a day where we did interviews talking about the events going on and what's happening and interviewing all the top stars that everybody sees at WrestleCon. 34, we're at New Orleans. We aired a few more shows, did a couple shows of our friends from WWN. And that was when Ring of Honor sort of got themselves on the map. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, they had 7,000 people at a show in New Orleans. And we were the distributor of that show. And then it really got real as it relates to FITE Fest. The first FITE Fest we did was in New York City when they played the MetLife Stadium. We did over 35 shows that weekend. We aired our first studio-type program to support the event. We're all over the city over about a 4-day period. That's back when WrestleMania only do 1 day. And it was quite an experience. We were all set, ready to go in Tampa. Of course, then pandemic hit. Literally weeks before WrestleMania was scheduled for Tampa there for 36. Everybody knows that event, you know, turned into a no-fan event. Sure. But 2 nights is a great event. And then 37 last year was Tampa, still very limited when it came to fans. But this year, 38, here we come. We got a lot going on.
Yeah, and you know, you talked about that first FITE Fest. That was actually, I don't know if you remember this, that was the day you and I first met in person. It was the first event that I ever did for FITE, and it was so much fun to be a part of that. And now I am excited this year to be a part of, not only do we have FITE Fest, which kind of encompasses everything, and we'll talk all about that, but we also have going on every single day throughout the entire day, the FITE Fest Event Center, which I know I will be a part of. We'll have a number of other people because at some point I'm going to have to go to the bathroom. But we're going to be having this event. Can you describe for everybody what the event center is going to be like and why they're going to want to stay tuned to FITE throughout the day when they're not watching any of the great events that we have?
So, yeah, starting March 31st on Thursday, and then Friday, April 1st, and Saturday, April 2nd, we're going to be going nonstop, pretty much about 10 to 12 hours each day, live from the floor of WrestleCon, where we're going to be interviewing all the top wrestlers that everybody has seen, upcoming wrestlers, and then, of course, wrestlers who are going to be appearing on our shows. Not only will we be doing interviews and talking about what's coming up, we'll actually do live look-ins. sort of like what a lot of people are familiar with, ESPN Sports Center.
Sure.
You know, and we'll say, oh my gosh, Ric Flair just showed up here and he did this and then he did that. Well, not all about Ric Flair, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. Now the internet's going to run wild that Ric Flair is showing up somewhere.
I have a feeling Ric Flair may be in Dallas that weekend. I'd be shocked. I don't think he can stay away from it, you know. But it will essentially be doing look-ins of various shows, and we got a full plate of shows coming up during that weekend. And we will have different hosts. And yes, Josh, I'm thrilled to say that you are going to be one of our hosts. We'll see how this interview goes. But yes, you'll be one of our hosts. And we'll have the Schmo, who's a little bit new to wrestling, but not new to combat sports or fight. There, Helen Yee will be there also. I believe Nick Aldis and SoCal Val, who was with us at the beginning, and a few other people will be stepping into the hosting position. And we're quite excited about a good group of people giving their insights about what's going on. We'll have more on that as we get closer to the show about who the guest hosts are. And at the very least, we're going to have some fantastic interviews with wrestlers of yesterday, today, and hopefully tomorrow.
So you talked about WrestleCon. We'll be on the floor of WrestleCon. WrestleCon is something that has become synonymous with this weekend, just as FITE Fest is becoming synonymous with this weekend. WrestleCon first started, if I'm correct, back in 2013. But in my research, I was trying to see how long ago this started, where the top independent promotions or these conventions were running alongside but not actually affiliated with WrestleMania. And I saw all the way back to Chicago in 2006, Ring of Honor had their first Supercard of Honor. And of course, you know, we're expecting Ring of Honor. It's been in the news lately, right? So
a little bit.
Yeah. So, but looking back at that goes back to 2006. So decent amount of time ago, but you have been involved with WrestleMania way longer ago than that. Not to make you feel old or anything, but, you know, way back.
Well, wait, let's call things what they are. I am old.
Wow.
And I start working with WrestleMania before I think you were born almost, or very close to the same time.
Very kind of you to say. We'll just go with that. Yeah.
I had the good fortune to be an intern at WrestleMania 2. And if you're a real historian of pro wrestling, you'll know WrestleMania 2 is the event, which even today, it's amazing they pulled it off, you know, 37 years later, in that the first hour is from Madison Square Garden. The second hour was from the Rosemont Horizon in Chicago. And the third hour was from the LA Sports Arena. Mm-hmm. And my job was sitting ringside during the Battle Royal. And if Refrigerator Perry fell the ring, I was supposed to catch him. Okay. And if you ever go back and watch some video, you'll see some guy with black hair and a little red tie, sort of like what Josh has on now, hoping that Refrigerator Perry didn't fall the ring. And just to put a little understanding that, it was a battle royal with Andre the Giant, Big John Studd, all the biggest names from WWF at the time. But also, I think it was 5 or 6 NFL players in there, with Refrigerator Perry being one of the biggest names. But, you know, you had Harvey Martin of the Cowboys and Ed Too Tall Jones of the Cowboys and Bill Fralick, who I believe, I'm trying to remember who he played for now. I think the Steelers, or he's from Pittsburgh. He played University of Pittsburgh. So anyway, we had some great, big names in there. It was a great event. That's how I started. I'd not been around wrestling, didn't grow up around wrestling, and but I got the bug. And a lot of great memories from there. Everywhere from Andre the Giant hanging up on the phone when I called him in his room, telling him we need to be ready for a meeting. He said, "Not now," politely. And to,
I'm sure you marched right up there and banged on that door and dragged him to that meeting.
Yeah, and getting to know my good friends, me and Gene Okerlund and Bobby Heenan, Rest Their Souls, all of them. I mean, I saw the last WrestleMania, I guess it must have been in New Orleans. I saw Gene, and we told some just great old stories from that WrestleMania. So a lot of memories with it. And then WrestleMania 3, 4, and 5, fortunately, I had moved up the ranks. I was director of PR for WrestleMania, or excuse me, for WWF at the time. And, you know, WrestleMania 3, as everybody knows, there really was 93,173 people in the Silver Dome. I ran the press box for that event. Of course, WrestleMania 4 and 5 was in Atlantic City at the Atlantic City Convention Center under the Trump Plaza banner as the host. So I was very interesting time when wrestling was really taking off, and a lot of experiences and a lot of memories from those times. And it's just sort of surreal now that I'm going to be around something like WrestleMania 38, where there are 2 nights now. And it's going to probably be 125 to 150,000 people in Dallas from around the world. Things are opening up now. People are itching to get back in there. WrestleCon has taken off and has become as much a part of WrestleMania and anything. Actually, I just read, I don't believe WWF is even offering access this year. So I'm sure WrestleCon will be just huge this year. And fans and many of those people who were on those earlier WrestleManias, the ones who are still with us, will be there signing autographs, and we'll hopefully have many of them as a guest on our FITE Fest event center.
Could you ever have imagined when you were an intern there, WrestleMania 2, the 37 years later, not only would you still be involved in a way in the wrestling business, because coming into it, you know, that couldn't have been anywhere in your mind of, hey, I'm going to carve out this big career involved in professional wrestling when you weren't even really a fan, as you said, growing up. But then to think that all these years later, it kind of is like you talked about full circle being back in Dallas for FITE, but full circle in the sense that every year you come back to this is how you got your start in wrestling. And how crazy is it? You got your start in wrestling at WrestleMania, right? The thing people work their entire lives to get to. That's where you got your start.
Well, and back in those days, you only did one pay-per-view event a year.
Yeah.
You know, they didn't graduate to doing 4 pay-per-view events. I think it's probably 88 or 89 before they started going 4 a year at WWF. Yeah. And how many are we going to do during that weekend? I believe it's going to be, what, 22, 21? I lost count.
What I do know is that it will be over 100 hours of wrestling content, live wrestling content. That might even be the most important thing. It is live. You know, it's not like we've got 22 pre-tape shows that we're just going to roll out there. I say it easy, like I have any idea how that actually works. But, you know, the fact that we're going to have over 100 hours of live wrestling, plus the event center, it's exciting. I am so excited to be able to be a part of this. Can you talk to us a little bit about, you know what, before we even get into talking about the actual event, there's one other thing I wanted to talk to you about, because you mentioned being PR for the WWF. I had talked about how I looked back at 2006 is when independent promotions like Ring of Honor started really latching on in a way to this weekend and making it more than just WrestleMania. Do you remember, I mean, being in PR, what outside of the WWF and outside of WrestleMania was there? Were there other companies going as far back as WrestleMania 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 that were running shows or running conventions or doing something? Because there have always been legends in wrestling that were looking to, you know, to do something that weekend. So do you remember any of that during that time?
No, no. What WrestleMania 2 through 5, there was nothing else going on. Was there other significant wrestling organizations? Absolutely. NWA and AWA were very active at that time, but they stayed as far away as possible from there. I'm positive through 5, there was nothing else in town. And I think WrestleMania 5 was probably the first event. I know we had a WrestleMania 5K on the boardwalk in Atlantic City. We did have some fan events, and that's sort of like the first time, and I can't be honest, I can't remember, it's 4 or 5 that we did anything fan-oriented to supplement the main event of WrestleMania. And that was what the precursor of what then turned into Access. And Access, you know, for WWE goes back to the early 90s, and as a real big event. They did quite well with it and kept building from there on that. But I know I worked at TNA Wrestling from 2008 to 2013. And when I started at TNA, they had just done Orlando again for WrestleMania, and they had done the event there. And that was one of the big steps for then known as TNA Wrestling to take advantage of that huge crowd from around the world coming in and showcasing their brand also. Yeah. As you said, with Ring of Honor did in 2006. I'm not clear if TNA did it before 2008, but I know they did it in 2008 and did it a couple times during that time period. Then it really started taking off. And then by the time I got started with FITE, there was independent wrestling shows. That matter of fact, at Dallas show, at WrestleMania 32, there was easily 6-7 different shows going on in Dallas that weekend. But I got to tell you, once we hit New York City, I think there was over 50-55 independent wrestling shows that weekend, and we aired 35 of them. I believe in Dallas, there was over, I think there's planning to be 40 to 50 shows coming up. And I asked you to tell me the count of them. I think we're at 22 shows or 23 shows. Right. So we got quite a few wrestling shows going on.
Yeah, and it really is a who's who. So we'll talk a little bit about that now. Who are some of the promotions that people can see as a part of FITE Fest? And then I want to talk about some of the other bundles that you can get. There's so many shows. Let's go show by show, really. We don't have to do each and every show because there's a lot of them, and we'll be here all day. But obviously, first that jumps to mind, the GCW Collective. They are doing a number of, I want to say 13 shows off the top of my head. That's what I'm thinking.
So you're 12 or 13. Yeah, I first met Brett Lauderdale. Actually, he was one of the shows that the WWN did in New Orleans in, I guess, during WrestleMania 34 weekend. And he was just starting to get his style of wrestling going there. And then once he moved up, he started doing a few more shows. And by New York City, he was doing, I think a dozen there as well. And then he was actually the promoter who did independent wrestling in Tampa last year. And we aired all his shows. I think it was another 8 to 10 shows. And yeah, he's got a dozen shows here. We're excited about working with him. He probably does at least 6 shows a month on FITE. So, GCW fans are very familiar with FITE because they're on there, very loyal. GCW's been exclusive on FITE since their debut with us in summer of 2018, I believe it was. And we enjoy working with them quite a bit.
Yeah, Nick Gage, actually, in an interview I did with him for our social media at FITE TV, Nick Gage credited FITE with being responsible in part for this launch of GCW. GCW really going into that next level, that next gear. Although I'll be honest, it's Nick Gage, so had he said the opposite, I probably would have just agreed in the moment. But I mean, that was a great thing to hear from him, and I know the fans just love being able to watch GCW and all the content they're putting out on FITE. Well, guess what? Now, everybody, you're going to get to watch the entire collective on FITE. You can get the individual events, or you can get it as a bundle where you can get every single event that will be going on that weekend for GCW. There will be a collective bundle, which by the time this is airing, it is available now. So go and pre-order that right now. Who else do we have under, let's say, the FITE Fest banner that we're kind of as a separate bundle there? There's a lot of different promotions.
Yeah, it's probably the first time that we've had all these brands together. And most of them, everybody's going to know, they've all aired program on a very regular basis on FITE. But let's start off with Impact Wrestling.
Yep.
They have one of their shows coming to us. We have New Japan Pro Wrestling, which I think this might be one of the first times they've done an event during the WrestleMania weekend in Dallas. And we have AAA Lucha Libre, and I'm positive this is the first time they've done a live event during the WrestleMania week, as it's called, and we're part of FITE Fest. WrestleCon is producing 2 of their shows, a WrestleCon Super Show.
The Mark Hitchcock.
Memorial, who I did have the pleasure of working with him when he was a referee at WCW. Great guy, and lost too soon to cancer, unfortunately. And I'm glad they still honor him because that was obviously it was over 20 years ago that he passed. And I'm glad they're doing that, and that's usually a very hot show. They're also doing a second show called USA versus the World. And then we got something a little bit different with the 2, let's just call them panel shows. Our good friend Conrad Thompson is going to be with Jeff Jarrett. and Eric Bischoff from his group of podcasts, with special guests of Jeff Hardy, and I believe they may have announced the other special guest. Do you know if that's been announced yet?
They just announced today as we record this. Yeah, William Regal will be there.
I am so glad to see him. I had the pleasure of working with him at WCW when he first came in. Had a good working relationship with him. And well, actually, I worked with Eric. I worked for Eric. And actually, I worked with Jeff and worked for him. Yeah. And Jeff Hardy, I've also worked with. So. Okay, yeah, let's get to the point. I'm old.
A much shorter list of who you haven't worked with, I think, in wrestling. But yeah, that's going to be a great stage show. Anyone who is a fan of Conrad and his podcasts know what to expect. And if you've never seen any of his live shows, it's that and then some. It's, so it's going to be a lot of fun. Who knows what? I mean, look at those people that are going to be on stage. Eric Bischoff, Jeff Jarrett, Jeff Hardy, and William Regal. That sounds like kind of like a hodgepodge of people thrown together there, but that really is a who's who of people who have done something in professional wrestling. And
I think they're only planning going an hour and a half or 2 hours, but that could go 6 or 7 hours and put a beverage or two on the table. It could go a couple hours. And then we also have major podcasts coming in. And you've worked with those guys a lot more. Maybe expand a little bit more about what their program will be.
Yeah, so this is going to be the Major Wrestling Figure Podcast Live 12. This is the 12th live event, stage show type of event that Matt Cardona and Brian Myers have done. This is the first one ever that is being broadcast live. And the other ones weren't even, you couldn't even watch the videos on their Patreon. You could hear some audio from it, but this is a big, big step for them. And I know already people in their community there are so excited because you have people in Europe, let's say, who, pandemic aside, maybe they can't make the trip over to Dallas, right? As easily as somebody in the States could, but they really, really want to see this live show. Well, now for the first time in 12 live shows, you're going to be able to see it and you're going to be able to watch it on FITE. It's going to be individual, but also part of the bundle. Any of these shows, in my opinion, I've had the opportunity to be working with you behind the scenes in watching the schedule come together. And every single show in this lineup, I look at it and I go, I know people who would pay the full price for the bundle for this one show. And you're getting, and that sounds like such a insincere, hard sell, but it's true. These are top shows with top talent. And then, we've got those 2 stage shows as well. So it's a little bit of everything. You have the action and there's going to be plenty of comedy. And if you are familiar with the Major Wrestling Figure Podcast live shows, you know there are going to be a ton of surprises. They always have surprise talent. And I mean, there is no other time to have talent available. You mentioned Ric Flair is probably going to be in Dallas. Everyone's going to be in Dallas. So you never know who is going to show up, and they're going to show up with a live microphone and they're going to say whatever they want to say. So it's going to be exciting. I'm excited for that. I'm excited for Conrad's. I'm excited for the whole thing, Mike.
Well, wait. There's more.
But wait.
We have 3 more shows. We got 4 more shows. So let's go. The last bundle that we have is with our good friend Booker T and Jerry Bostic, who own Reality of Wrestling and World Class Wrestling. They're putting on 3 shows. And one of the ones I'm most interested in seeing, they're doing an all-women's wrestling show, the Sherry Martel Classic. And if you're real into the wrestling, you would know that Sherry was a manager for Booker T. I also had the pleasure being at the very, very first televised show that Booker T and Stevie Ray worked as Harlem Heat in Columbus, Georgia, where they debuted on TBS. Very interesting show. And let's just keep it, if you really know your history, you'll know what I'm talking about. They were not wearing their red and black singlets when they came to the ring. They had a guy wearing a white suit and a white hat named Colonel Tom Parker, who was great guy, but it wasn't exactly something you would even dream of doing nowadays. And Booker and me have had a laugh or two about it in the past, how they broke in. But Harlem Heat obviously was a major stay for WCW throughout the 90s, and Booker now still, very much in the forefront of the wrestling business, in association of WWF or WWE, and being Hall of Famer, and now he has his own wrestling organization for quite a few years. Very successful wrestling school in Houston, and of course, Reality Wrestling. Jerry Bostic, we've had the opportunity to work with him in World Class Wrestling, and they're gathering up to do 3 shows, one on the 31st, then 1st and 2nd. And
yes,
and Wayne bring me up to speed on the other 2 shows, because I think they're honoring Texas wrestling quite a bit in those shows.
Yeah, it's going to be the Showdown night 1 and night 2, the Texas Showdown, and it's going to be a who's who. When you have a guy like Booker T running the show, I think his Rolodex is almost as big as yours. So I think he is going to be able to bring some great stars. Off the top of my head, I know already Charlie Haas is going to be there, who has kind of had a resurgence recently in pro wrestling. So there's going to be a lot of people from the past. But you mentioned during the event center how we're hoping to have some people from the future. Well, Booker T has this school, so the Reality of Wrestling, you are going to have an opportunity, of course, seeing legends, of course, seeing active stars right now, but you will have that opportunity to really see the future of wrestling. I think if you look back 5 years from now, you will say, man, this person who's on TV every single week, I remember watching them for the first time at Reality of Wrestling. So, again, that's just another plate on the table here, a FITE Fest weekend. And of course, those events will be in their own bundle. You'll be able to get all 3 of those events. We have the GCW Collective bundle. We have the FITE Fest bundle. And then we also have that, we'll call it the Reality of Wrestling bundle. So yeah, it is
wait. We got more.
Oh my, wow.
We got one of the most anticipated shows, which is just most elevated. And God knows what's going to happen there. Ring of Honor had previously announced that they're going to be there April 1st, and they'll be airing live on pay-per-view on FITE as a standalone event. And if you're, follow wrestling, you must be living on a rock if you didn't know that AEW just announced last week that they acquired Ring of Honor. So we don't know what's going to be happening there, but I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people anticipating. I know ticket sales increased dramatically with the announcement, which wasn't the intention, I don't believe, when they acquired them. It's not, hey, let's figure out how we can goose those ticket sales up a little bit.
Yeah. Let's sell the company. That'll help.
Yeah, let's sell the company. That's a good business plan. But Tony Khan obviously saw something positive in Ring of Honor to wanting to keep them their legacy alive. They are definitely one of the pioneers in the business and have a very rightful place in the business, and we're looking forward to working with them on this event. And I really don't have any idea what's going to happen at that show now.
No,
and I'm pretty sure nobody else does at this point.
No, that's the thing. Some matches have been tossed around, some have been announced, but now we look at it with Tony Khan taking over, and we can't necessarily say that a match that had been announced prior to that from previous ownership, maybe that match will still stand, maybe it won't. So who knows? One thing that I'm very confident in saying is you don't want to miss it. So make sure you watch it. And you want to watch it on FITE.
But it won't be an AEW Light, or it won't be another version of Dynamite. It will have its own vision to it there. Tony's fingerprints, I'm sure, will probably be on it. I don't really know. But it will not just be another version of AEW. They did not acquire it for those reasons. And it will probably pay homage to AEW, and of course, Ring of Honor. And I think a lot of people realize that Ring of Honor has been developing their own Hall of Fame, which I'm sure will be honored in some way or another that evening. So I'm going to sit next to you and everybody else. I can't wait to watch that show because I really don't know what to expect. So, man, do we have a lineup? I don't think there's any stinkers in there.
It's stacked, and we're going to be running. I'm going to run a graphic right now that's showing you. We're just going to scroll through and show you the entire lineup because it really is more than Mike and I can. We would have to be here for the next 2 hours to talk about each and every one. But do not miss it. Go right now, FITE.tv, and pre-order these bundles. Pre-order the entire FITE Fest weekend. Mike, what else before we let you go? Because I know you have a million more shows probably to put together for this weekend. But what I don't know that there's anyone left, right? You've got everybody.
Well,
on
you might have heard that we do boxing and MMA, and matter of fact, there's going to be a versus show on April 1st on FITE also. And as you may have heard, we are doing 100 hours of live programming that weekend, but during less than a 72-hour period. So, Josh, I hope you did your math in school. That means there's going to be some shows going on at the same times. Okay.
Yeah.
There's going to be a couple different occasions where we got 2, sometimes even 3 shows going at the same time. But guess what? FITE has this great feature where it's VOD. You don't have to watch everyone live. I don't expect you to have 2 TVs sitting next to each other. I mean, that's just crazy. Okay. But what we want you to do is watch it on your main TV. Maybe you can watch it on your phone, but you also can go back and watch it. I mean, it's going to be an interesting weekend, and it's going to be a lot of fun, and we're excited about it. And of course, it's available around the entire world. There's no geo-blocking on this event, whereas some other events we do have blockings in various parts of the world. This event, all these events will be where anywhere you have Wi-Fi in the world, it will work and be on FITE.
Yeah, so you definitely want to make sure you download that FITE app and get ready for these incredible events. I think you set up a TV, set up a laptop computer, right? So you can bring that into the room with the TV. Then you also have a tablet. Then you also have your phone. And that's at least 4 shows that you can be watching at the same time. But I think the VOD, I think that's really important because a lot of people might be looking at this saying, well, do I really want to get the bundle? I'm going to be out. I'm going to be busy all day on Saturday. Yeah, I'll be able to do Saturday night, but should I really get the bundle? I'm not going to be able to watch those. Well, you are going to be able to watch those. You can go back and watch everything.
I do want to give some of our fans some personal advice that if you're going to set up a tablet, a laptop, a TV, and a phone to watch it, if you have a spouse, you won't after that weekend. So, don't ignore your family. We're not trying to disrupt families here. We want people to enjoy themselves and maybe have friends and family over. It should be a great week. It should be a lot of fun. And
so you have to say that. You have to say that. You're the COO.
Well, you have to.
I can say, set your family up something nice and nice.
No, we got lawyers. I don't want to get sued for.
Yeah. See, I can say all those things. Like, just get it. They'll understand. Your family, you know what? Absence makes the heart grow fonder. They will be so happy to see you when you return 4 days later after watching FITE Fest on FITE. So, but yeah, Mike, I thank you so much for taking the time to be here. All kidding aside, you are a very, very busy man. People can probably tell you're traveling right now as we're doing this. So,
yeah, as you might see, I'm staying in a hotel room in New York City right now. Yes.
Yeah. So it's for you to take the time and do this. I really appreciate it. On this little show I have here called Fight and Focus on FITE. It is so great to be able to finally, I feel like Pat McAfee here. I finally got the boss on my show. I'm so excited. But make sure you go now, FITE.tv. That entire weekend from March 31st until April 2nd, just go right now and look on the schedule. It's all there. Go get those bundles, GCW Collective, FITE Fest, and of course, Reality of Wrestling. Get the bundles, get the individual shows if you want to. Just mix and match and get the whole thing, but get ready because this coming, I was going to say April, but it starts March 31st. You do not want to miss FITE Fest, which will be right here on FITE. Mike Weber, thank you so much for taking the time.
I got one more thing.
There's more? How is there more?
Well, it's not free, obviously, and we appreciate everybody spending their hard-earned money. But our good friend Conrad Thompson owns a mortgage service, and he'd be happy to help you finance it that week.
Yeah, that's you know what? That's perfect. Yeah, get that second mortgage so that you can afford this weekend.
You know first family mortgage.
Yeah,
listen to Conrad's podcast, and you'll find out. He'll explain to you how you can afford this entire weekend of everything wrestling.
And since we're plugging things for Conrad, if people want to hear a more in-depth version of your story and how you got started in wrestling, you just did an interview with Conrad Thompson, which is available at adfreeshows.com. So definitely check that out as well. But yes, for Mike Weber, the COO, the co-founder, and my boss, I am Josh Shernoff. Thank you all for joining us here on Fight and Focus, and make sure you go now, right now, FITE.tv and pre-order FITE Fest. We'll see you then.